Thank
Does
you.
not think that's gonna affect them because they do what they do?
You know, we told them there's gonna be instances where we're gonna need more than that 3.5%. Here we go get COVID first rattle
Yeah,
out.
almost all of the special
Yeah, I heard they put it
transferred
back.
over except for maybe.
Did they take it back?
Well, here.
Well, you know, even our constituents, so why you got so much in reserve?
Great, we
We
got
ain't got
it.
much in. Good.
Yeah, we got the biggest one is the county.
What's the biggest one, South Richmond?
That one, yeah.
Hats.
Is that for us all? Isn't that,
Interesting.
Sounded Chinese.
Same. Got me.
Like it counts.
This one spread on your
yeah.
Good morning. Court will now come to order. Young County Commissioners Court setting in a regular meeting Monday, May the 11th, 2020. It's 9:31 a.m. Make note that this proceeding was posted in the manner for the time required and all members of the court are present. And if you're listening in and viewing it live on YouTube, we have a telephone number that you may call in if you wish to make some kind of comment about any item that might be on the agenda. The telephone number is 940-221-2107. One more time, 940-221-2107. If it's convenient, please stand and we'll ask Commissioner Price, I believe.
Yes, sir. Let us pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to serve this county together. Thank you very much for the opportunity to live in such a wonderful and great country. Thank you for all our many blessings, even among the plague that confronts us at the moment. Please deliver us from all of this and help us to understand that even through all this, you are standing beside us and helping us through. Thank you for everything you do for us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
And make note that we are trying to honor the 6-foot rule and the group gathering rule as best as can be followed. We'll move now to item number 3, public comments, presentations, leaving no action items. What I have noted on the agenda is a public notice to Region G, Regional Water Planning Commission, Brazos G is what we call that. It's a meeting to be held on Wednesday, June the 3rd, 2020 at 10 a.m. It's not set in stone just yet whether it will be by teleconference or whether it will be in person at Waco, Texas, or whether it'll be a combination of both. So look at their website. It's in your packet there on a public notice if you wish to participate in that meeting or reserve that meeting. There'll be something further down the line, I guess, whether they're permitted to have that as an in-person conference. So it may be one, the other, or both. The other thing I have here is Corvette. Make note, I'll give an update here in just a minute. The third item is barbershops and cosmetology, hair and tanning salons open Friday, May the 8th. I did get a haircut on Saturday at about noon, and that's the first one I've had in about 6 or 8 weeks. So I thought it was looking pretty woolly, but nobody noticed it.
I noticed. I didn't say nothing.
But they opened at 25% capacity, those. Exercise venues and workout centers are scheduled to open May 18th. I don't know whether that would be advanced be a little earlier or not, but that's what the way they're scheduled currently. Gyms and exercise centers. And the other thing that I have here is just, we didn't have a Friday meeting, so I'll give a little update on our current circumstances as of May the 10th. That would be yesterday, Mother's Day. From a state standpoint, there's been 23,000 of the mobile testing team, 23,000 tests made by the mobile testing teams in 197 counties in Texas. Young County had one of those, I guess it was last week, on Wednesday, and they tested, I believe they've got it quoted as 6 tests here in Young County. Total tests in Texas have been 514,000. There's been approximately 17,000 positive tests tested. There's 1,626 of those are hospitalized at last current report. And there's been 1,088 fatalities. That's statewide. From our district standpoint, when I say district, I'm talking about Disaster District 3, which includes the Nortex region, or basically is the Nortex region. There's been 3,556 tests. 3,253 of those tests have been negative. There's been 212 pending, with 96 of those tests being positive. That includes the Nortex region generally. Right here countywide, at last report, we have tested 502 citizens, or 502 tests have been submitted from Young County doctors. There's been 7 of those that were positive. However, 3 of those are credited to other counties. In other words, they were tested here by Young County doctors, and those returns were to Young County doctors, but those people were residents of another county, and they were credited to that county. So Young County has had 4 positive tests. One of those unfortunately passed away, and the other 3 have recovered, so we currently have 0 active cases here in Young County today. 476 of the 502 have come back negative, and there are 20 tests pending at this current time. With that, does anybody have anything else to add to or any announcements tonight, or anything like that? If not, we'll move on to 3A. This is to discuss and consider outside audit report by Mr. Mike Edgin. He's with Edgin Department of Fleming and Fleming. He's been doing our audit for a few years now. Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Very good. Again, Mike Edgen with Edgen, Parkman, Fleming, and Fleming, and we've had the privilege to work with the county this year to conduct its annual financial report. And we'll go over it with you as briefly as possible, but still try to hit all the highlights that I consider important to bring to the board. In the bound document, the annual financial report on pages 1 and 2, we have your independent auditor's report, and we still have a qualification relative to the judicial receivables. Those are not recorded, so that part of our auditor's report is qualified. All the other information in here are unmodified opinions on your financial statements. After that, we have the management's discussion and analysis on page 3 through 11. We helped draft this, but it does really belong to management. We help with responding to some of the numbers and information here, get the explanations for changes from the county. It is unaudited, but it does agree, some of the explanations agree with what we found here in our audit procedures. Immediately after that, there's a couple sets of financial statements on pages 12 and 13 that you don't see any other time except in the annual financial report. I refer to these as the government-wide set of financial statements. We take all the funds of the county, consolidate them down in one column. We'll do eliminations like a consolidation, but we also convert it from short-term basis to long-term basis. That means we have the county's capital assets, all the capital assets owned by the county, net of accumulated depreciation. We also include the long-term liabilities. That'd be any debt that's issued, capital leases, so forth, and also the pension liability and the OPEB liabilities to the TCERS, so those are listed as well. So if you look at this statement of net position on page 12, we have total assets, deferred outflows, liabilities, deferred inflows. The difference between those four is your equity, your net position. The net position at the end of the fiscal year in total was $23,331,000. It's broken down in a couple components. The net position and net investment capital assets, that's your capital assets net of any related debt, was $14,773,000. Restricted, those are restricted for specific purposes, like your debt service fund is in that. Your special revenue funds, all the special revenue funds that are restricted for specific purposes. And then the unrestricted is the difference. That is available for future operations. That balance was $7,283,000. How those numbers change from prior years on the statement of activities, again, on a long-term basis of accounting. I'm not going to go over all the numbers at the top, but toward the bottom, there's a change in that position. There was a positive change this year on a long-term basis, a positive change of $1,380,000 for the year. So your net position grew by that amount this year, even after depreciation expense, so it's very good. Now we'll get to the statements you're used to seeing on page 14. These are short-term bases on a modified accrual basis of accounting. The two funds that are represented here, the general fund represents the county's general fund, Fund 10, plus the road and bridge funds. The other governmental columns are all your special revenue funds and debt service funds. Those are typically restricted in nature. And the balance sheet here is your assets, liabilities, deferred inflows. The difference between those is your fund balance to equity on a short-term basis. The general fund had a total fund balance of $7,357,000, and the other special revenue funds had a total fund balance of $1,284,000. In the general fund, the unassigned fund balance, that's what you committed for future operations, was $5,974,000. Total fund balance, we had about 7.7 months of operations if you look at your current expenditures. So that would calculate about 7.7 million. Unassigned is 6.3. The Government Officers, Finance Officers Association says anywhere between 3 and 6 is a good period to be in, period to be in, and y'all are exceeding that. So you're just over the high end of that, so very positive area, your equity. How those numbers changed, again, on a short-term basis on 16 and 17. The statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Same funds, whether revenues, expenses, the difference, and then other sources and usage on 17, about the middle of 17. Change in fund balance. Your general fund, you added $1,194,000 to fund balance, and the other governmental funds, a little over $208,000 for the year, in total $1.4 million on a short-term basis. After that, we got a lot of notes to your financial statements. There's only one I was going to kind of go over with you. I mentioned in your long-term balance sheet, if you will, on a government-wide basis, there's a liability for pension liability. On page 40, there's a table. The TCDRS calculates this and provides the information to us. It's audited for the county. We report it in your financial statements, your government-wide financial statements. The cutoff for this liability is actually at 12/31, so it's not in line exactly with the county's fiscal year. So it's a little behind, but at December 31st, 2018, the bottom of that table, the total liability is $1,738,000. Actually grew from $13,000 from the prior year at the top of that table. Almost a $1.725 million increase. The biggest factor, if you compare last year's table to this year, is the net investment income actually was a loss this year, in this calendar year. So you fast forward the clock at 12/31/19, investments were way up. So this liability should drop back down. You're paying everything you're supposed to. It's just a calculation, actuarial calculation. However, you go back into the year we're in now, the stock market's really struggling. So this is just going to escalate up and down as time goes on. No control really what y'all have other than approving the rates that y'all have in the plan. You're paying exactly what's been approved. It's just a calculation that's done every year. After that, there's only one other schedule in here I'd like to go over on 47 and 48. This is the budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund. The first column, the original budget, is what the court originally approved for the budget. And then the final is the final amended, and we compare it to actual operations, and then in that last column. When we look at revenues, we're brought in actually about $1,275,000 more revenues than what was compared to the final budget. The expenditures on the top side, you actually expended $1,189,000 more than what you budgeted. Almost a net difference of zero after resources coming in, proceeds from insurance, issuance of leases, sale of capital assets. You actually ended up with a positive change comparing your budget of $984,000 compared to what actual final budget is. So even though you had a positive increase of 209, actual was almost 1.2 million. In summary, you had a good opinion on your financial statements minus the judicial receivables, which we're working on. I'll talk about that in just a minute. Equities increased significantly this year. Very good year financially. We did have some budget variances, but revenues less the expenditure kind of came back in line. More positive increase in revenues, unfavorable variances in the expenditures. So that's your annual financial report. Any questions before I move on? I know it's a lot of information to get you real quick. If not, there's a couple other letters that are stapled that I'd like to go over with real quick as well. The first one is the one that's marked at the very bottom right-hand corner, AUC 265 letter. We're required by our standards to communicate any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. We had a couple this year, 3 bank reconciliations in the fee offices. Those are outside of the treasurer's offices. We had some that did not document who prepared the actual bank reconciliation or when it was done. We also had some that were completed, but no review or approval process. And we recommend that they are documented, both sides of that equation, the preparation side and the review and approval. To document, one, they're done timely, and someone else will review and make sure they're done correctly as well. During the audit, on top of page 2, we had some material audit adjustments by standards. If we make material audit adjustments by default, it is a material weakness. We recommend that financials internally reviewed and adjustments are made prior to us starting the audit. And then lastly, we talked about it just a minute ago, overexpended budgets in the general fund. We had several that were overexpended, and those are listed there and also in the financial statements. So that's that report. Those are material weaknesses, the larger items. The other letter I'd like to go over with is the management letter. These are things lesser in nature, the things that we found that we still want to talk to you about. The very first one, we start off with prior. I mentioned all the ones from the prior year, kind of what the status is of each, and then anything new this year will be listed separately. Year-end adjustments, talked about it before about making sure all the adjustments are made prior to us starting so we can avoid that material adjustments. That is kind of the first comment there, to make sure they're posted. Review the balance sheet items, make sure they're all adjusted as well, and record capital leases, etc. Judicial receivables, I mentioned those have not been recorded. The county has made great efforts of getting all the other departments, the district clerk, county clerk, the JP offices, to start using a third party to help collect. That's the main key, honestly. If you don't collect the money, you can't spend it. So I think y'all have done a great job of getting that done.
We do have one.
Yes,
Yeah.
everybody now is using the collection agency. The next step is to help clean up some of those records. Now that you've got someone helping you collect, also help you make decisions on which ones will never be collected. They've served time, they're old, they're delinquent, and clean up the records so we can start recording that receivable on your financial statements as well. But y'all done a great start of actually helping get it when it's done.
Time period,
I'm sorry.
what time period should we give before we start?
Well, I would work with both the court and the collection agency to help with that. But everyone may be a little different, but anything over probably 2+ years, you may not be able to collect or assign a calculation for an allowance for uncollectible amounts, which is what we do for property taxes. You're probably going to collect them, but the likelihood, the older they get, the less likely you're going to collect the full amount. Where someone's going to own the property forever, and just never collect them.
Can you put liens on that, put money?
I don't know. I don't think you can put liens on the judicial type receivables. I'm not an attorney, but that's what I believe. I could be wrong with that. But I'm glad to see that everybody is using the agency now. And the next step would be to talk to Cheryl about. The next step would be helping to clean up those records for the county and then actually making the necessary changes in the receivables. Top of page 2, again, kind of prior comments, treasurer accounts that are not included in the internal financial statements that use Quicken. I was just being told that those are now, for the most part, in your net data in the 1920 year, which is great. That's the next step, was getting those over and start recording them just like any other. Policies and procedures, we recommended written accounting processes and disaster recovery plans be drafted. Basically, nothing has been done on that. There's other things, I guess, been forefront right now, but we do recommend that that be done at some point. Just have written documents so each department, each person knows what should be done, how they get from collections to in the accounting records, how they get reviewed, improved, adjusted, accounted for. At the very bottom, the capital assets depreciation schedule. Last year, we noted some items that weren't on the depreciation schedule that ended up being disposed. We couldn't even find what they were. This year, we did not have any issues with that. We do continue to recommend that they are reviewed and approved every single year to make sure the county's records and the department records are in sync with each other. Also, last year, we had a competitive procurement. Y'all spent more than $50,000 for an item, and it was not competitively procured. During the current year, we saw no problems with any issues with that. Current year comments, we have, actually this one's been around a while, but we just put it in the management letter this year. Two rural fire departments are using the county's employee identification number for their bank accounts. We do recommend that those be moved to their own EIN numbers and get them off the counties. Interfund balances, there's a couple older accounts. It's not uncommon for one fund to borrow money from the other fund just for short-term operations, but these have been around a while. We do recommend that those be paid back, if you will. I've listed the amounts there. Also, there's some old outstanding checks in a few of the accounts. I've listed those. I say old, but over a year old. I've listed the number and the dollar amounts of each. The process is really of reviewing those, making sure that new checks need to be made to replace those that may have been lost. The other would be after that is to either reinstate those or just cheat them back to the state of Texas. The top of page 4 is a deposit was not posted to the books because it really belonged to the next fiscal year. But that's not, since it was received in that fiscal year, it needs to be accounted for and recorded and just set up as under the revenue, just an accounting matter. Not the end of the world, but we did make that adjustment in the financial statements. And that's it in a nutshell. There's another letter, but it's really boilerplate language. Great year financially. We still have a couple items, material weaknesses, but I really think we're getting closer and closer to resolving some of those. Some of the items from prior year have been cleaned up, still working on a few. And that's what you should do. I mean, it's kind of working on each one every year, and eventually we'll get there. I appreciate everybody. This is the first year we actually did physically come. With everything that happened, we're doing more of that in our profession, is working remotely. But we appreciate everybody sending things in advance throughout the audit timely. It's not just I'm looking at these two ladies because they're the most ones we work with, but all the departments that we talk to. It's very, very helpful, very friendly. It's easy to work with.
Any comments, questions? That's about all.
It's a lot. You know. If you find something later, just let me know. And
I appreciate it, Mike, you. We'll do what we can to accommodate the requests. And we'll review this again through the year with Eagles Eye. I believe probably as it's listed on the agenda, motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Second Mike's side.
it's kind of
All in favor of approving the outside auditor's report from Mike Edgin of Edgin, Parkland, Fleming, and Fleming? All in favor? Very good.
All in all, gentlemen, managing the funds pretty well.
Excuse me?
So all in all, I think we're managing the county's funds very well.
It was a good year. It sounded like a good, I'm not sure about
It
this.
was next year.
Previous year, it looked like it was pretty good. Item number 4, we consider county clerk minutes from previous meeting of the April the 27th, 2020. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections?
So moved.
Second.
Ron? All in favor of approving the minutes from previous meeting?
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
Item number 4, consider, item number 5, consider treasurer financial report updates on security pledges. Sam?
Right, I had April and March's balance. Well, I thought I was never gonna get March balance. We had a update in that data, and there was a couple little glitches, and, anyways, everything's balanced. We're in great position. And, end of April, we have a lot more pages to our balances. Yeah. The treasurer's at this point has $3,745,000 in it. We moved almost all of the Quicken accounts that need to go into the budget. We've done that except for the county records management and 2 more, I think, but we couldn't get into the bank. So we're waiting until the bank opens back up. But
Are they still closed
to the,
to public?
yeah, you can make an appointment, but we didn't do that yet. Now we're in good shape.
Okay.
And that sales tax we received, and I think it's probably for 2 months ago, it was $123,000 that we received a couple of days ago, so that's great,
Only March's.
It could be even February's, it could be 2 months. And I think you already know, we received the tobacco settlement. That was $5,700
We noted that,
last time.
we know what amount it was, it has been paid.
Yes.
So there's like nearly $550,000 over the pledge here. Long wages.
Sir, on our debt service payment, we're paying interest next, how much you get?
We already paid it.
Yes, we pay in February. We have one more interest payment in August for this year.
Yeah, that's all.
Not a big
It's
lot.
every, no. The
It's
interest
just
is-
interest on.
100 and something thousand, I think it is.
Yeah.
Well, we paid that, what was that?
Admin fee.
Because in the, which one's escapes me? We had to pay for
Oh, that arbitrage.
the- Yeah,
Arbitrage.
For that arbitrage report we had to have.
I mean, right now, we're in good shape. We're making a whole list through for the next year.
Yeah. Yeah, we got nearly 450,000 in the debt service right now, so. Okay.
So move on the treasurer's report.
Second? Second. We have have a motion by Commissioner Pruitt, second by Commissioner Sykes to approve the treasurer's report, the security pledges, as well as the financial statement. All in favor? Aye. Five voting. Item number 6, consider all budget amendments about the payable.
Okay, I have budget amendments, and I'll have to explain them a little bit. $30 for miscellaneous in the treasurer's budget to her office equipment. $22,441.95. Mitch purchased cameras for the jail, and he paid for it out of commissary, so we moved it into the general miscellaneous so that we could move it down since it was commissary check. Then the other part of that for the cameras was $12,441.95. He received a grant to help pay for so many cameras, and then he paid for the rest of them out of commissary. And we'll move both of those into other equipment where we paid for the cameras. I think it was $34,000 something for the cameras, so. And then he also received a grant for the Sandra Bland Act for inmates to have a computer. I think we set up the library. And he received the grant for exactly how much it was, $3,941.82, which we received and received it into miscellaneous grants, and I paid for it out of the computer line in the budget, so we'll have to move the money back down there. Kind of perky this time, but
So was the cameras, like cameras for in the halls and stuff, or cameras for?
in the sales.
So, okay. Cool.
Well, and then we fixed all the cameras on the outside of the building.
Right. Awesome.
That were outdated.
No, that's a good job, man. I know it's great.
Back up to speed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All cameras
And they're all working now.
Been a while.
We have an eye on the sky.
And that's all the budget amendments.
With the budget amendments.
Yes.
So move.
Second.
Pruitt. We have a motion by Commissioner Wiley and a second by Commissioner Pruitt to approve the budget amendment as have been explained by the county auditor. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried, 5-0.
On vouchers for today, total of vouchers is $109,045.23. And out of the general is $89,278.11.
So move.
And there is no non-speak.
So move the vouchers.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Wiley, second by Commissioner Pruitt to approve vouchers payable has been presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried, 5-0.
Okay, and I'd like to talk again about, we talked about the, what do you call them, splash screens or whatever, that we did order those. When we were ordering them, Judge Mayer called, and he was asking me, and I said, it's funny you should ask about it, we were in the process of ordering. So, we went ahead and ordered 2 for his office also. And I think we talked about moving money out of contingency, you ought to approve, I think, $3,000. But with the JPs, it's adding another $1,000, it's $4,058.03. I haven't received them yet, I'm not gonna pay the bill until I do receive them. But I would like to move money out of contingency into each department and pay it out of their other equipment, so that someday when we're looking back,
Talk about screens.
splash screens.
Plexiglass splash.
Plexiglass. There were different sizes. Some of them ordered the large ones and some the small and the large. Just depends on what kind of space they needed them for. So I think altogether we have 10 screens ordered. And, you know, we ordered them that Monday. We talked about it and we still haven't gotten them, but supposed to be in process of being shipped.
I make a motion that we do that, and we do take the money out of contingency and put it in each department where it needs to go, so we do have a record of it.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Wiley, second by Commissioner Pruitt to approve
$4,058.
transfers from contingency to the other departmental equipment lines. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Moving into their office equipment
You
line.
have a specific amount there?
Well, the total is $4,058
For all departments.
and three, I think it's $1,287.01 to the clerk, $1,884.01 for the tax assessor, and $887.01 for JP3.
For a total of?
$4,058.03.
All in favor?
And I have one more question. We are still holding a check that was a donation for $300 to the sheriff's department. The check's been there since February. Ann is holding it in her office. They did a donation and have a little letter with it. We need to do
Do
something.
we have a donations line in our revenue budget?
We have a sheriff donation.
There is a sheriff donation.
Okay. I think we had this on the agenda some few meetings ago. We never had really sat down and discussed it or came up with a plan for the interim thing like that regarding the donations, but the court's got to accept any donation that comes, and those donations can come and be directed, or they may not. They may just donate. Most people are not going to donate just to the county, but they'll donate to a specific part of the county, or the funds will be utilized in a specific manner, and we're obligated to do that, but they've got to be received by the county general speaking. So, did they make those specifics in there?
They have a little note to Sheriff Babcock, and appreciated something that it just said, your deputies were very helpful and helped us secure protection, and also including a small donation to this department, to the sheriff's department.
So it's just for general operations of the sheriff's department?
Why can't we just set it to the donations line, and then when the sheriff's office needs,
It is his, he
Whatever.
has a donation line.
when they need whatever, then you can just move it? Yeah. Then we accept it.
Is that money spent outside his budget?
Yes, I will, we'd spend it out of the budget and move it down if,
To replenish the budget?
so it would not, it would replenish, like you said, $300.
Don't want anybody calling it a slush fund.
No, it's not.
$300.
Yes, sir.
I guess that can be directed to what Sheriff Babcock decides maybe where they want to go.
So you use it for your dog?
Once again, though, it's spent out of budget and replace it.
And
Right, money spent out of budget.
Yes.
Gun, vest,
So it's just, like the discretion he's got in his budget normally.
Right.
Okay.
You got a motion? Is there a motion?
No, you'll make it.
Accept that donation.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Hopefully it still clears the bank.
Yeah, really.
3 months old.
Now, you might be wrong. What are they good for, 60
I
days?
bet it does for those people to call if they have.
It was written in February.
They accept the donation of $300 dedicated to the Young County SO at Sheriff Babcock's discretion. I'll be in order.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor? Got anything else, Sheriff?
I think I'm done.
Hard to set money, don't they?
Item number 7, discuss consider employee bonds, the Gracie Langford, Peace Clerk, $5,000. Chelsea Moore, Justice of the Peace Clerk, $5,000. Megan Dawson, County Attorney Secretary, $5,000. And Amber Hamlin, Fort Belknap Caretaker, Young County, $5,000.
So,
Okay.
Okay. Rogers and Lott, we did that, Lott?
Started.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
5 votes. Item number 8, consider extension agent's request for reimbursement, Penny Barron, 3168, and Savannah Williams did not make a request at this time. Penny with us. Penny, you like to get up here and say something? Get up
What's
there.
happening with all your 4-H programs?
Get up here and get you on the knees, on your knees.
Right. Well, an extension stance right now is that we are on hold with any face-to-face programs through the end of May. We hope that with the May 18th announcement with Governor Abbott, that we will have some direction on our summer programming. Summer camps, we're still planning and moving forward as though those are going to happen, with some restrictions, of course, and social distancing and sanitation stations and things like that when we can. Hoping and praying that through the summer, that will look more like our normal 4-H summer. And then with plans that fall may look a little bit different again and try to learn, utilize technology and opportunities to reach kiddos this summer that maybe we haven't reached in the past. So things are a little bit different. I've actually gone maternity leave all through March and I returned the last week of April. And so it's actually good timing to be away and be with my family, so appreciate that. But yeah, coming in was a lot of management, a lot of professional development, learning how to utilize some of these tools. We've done a lot of online Zoom and Microsoft Teams type meetings, and so working with emergency management and some communication there in regards to the COVID-19 test sites, things like that, making sure that we can help promote on our website when possible and contacting people when we can to help share that information. In regards to expenses, with no travel, it was just receipts for 4-H management. It was actually materials requested by our shooting sports program, and so we're just providing that.
Penny, on this COVID-19, I guess y'all are kind of acting as advisors and liaisons.
Liaison mainly.
Is that with regard to the grant applications and those kinds of things for reimbursement of costs that has been devoted to COVID-19 prevention?
Yes, we're mainly not the middleman by any means, but just making sure that those emails are not getting lost in translation from the state over into county, city, mainly probably our superintendent's offices in regards to opportunities through the CARES Act program, and probably more specifically. And that is that Ag Life Extension is offering online trainings to help those better understand what opportunities are available through that. And so mainly it's just making sure that the emails aren't getting lost. It may not go beyond just a contact phone call or an email saying, are you aware, did you receive? Most of these things, they probably be understood and interpreted better than what we're to do that as well. But just making sure that that's not getting lost and that everybody is aware of what opportunities are being provided through that funding.
Okay, we're good.
And then also, I may not be using their technical terms, but in regards to emergency management, with the restructuring of the state emergency management through the Texas A&M University systems and AgriLife, that's just kind of pulling those two together for partnerships and making sure that we are assisting our district emergency management group with dissemination of information as well. That's more or less, the state standpoint is kind of where that role is coming into play more often, and I believe that began this past fall, so it's still a new early partnership with them.
That just That just began with January?
I believe so. We were trained, we had a meeting with them in September, and I think that was all still new, and so there was beginning, probably January, maybe even just before that, through the Christmas time period. Still very new. We'll see what further rules we have with that as we move forward.
How's the new one doing?
Doing great. Sleeping 12 hours.
There you go.
Never mind, got to train early, right?
Okay, very good, thank you. Motion to reimburse Penny Barron for $31.68.
So,
Second.
Science on the motion,
Yes, sir.
Wiley on the second. Okay, all in favor of that request, at $31.68? Anybody opposed to that? 5-0.
it don't be much money left in our budget.
Sad.
Item number 9 is discuss April activities for the jail, the sheriff's office. Sheriff Babcock.
Did you give the ones that mentioned? Can you print that for me, please?
Thank
Good morning. Hadn't slowed down much, has it?
No.
One,
I'm talking white still, half off the words.
you know, the one thing that really was a little lower than normal was the revenue generated by the civil process. We're not getting a lot of civil papers right now.
I guess like you mentioned, we're closed
$1,400 off.
on Fairview.
Well, I'll tell you, image of Mark, if you want to evaluate, they call you on the phone.
That's one.
Did you give me one? Please.
Thank
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, she the
Pass
sheriff.
it, did you pass it in?
I'll give it to them too.
Well, they've already got
The ones you told me to hand the, pass down? Matt handed them back behind you.
So, I think so.
Of course they will. They hand you $10 bill, you say thank you, or you say, well,
Control side, is there anybody have any questions on that?
What'd you say?
On the control side, one person will give you. You know, it seems like our calls for service are still about the same. Rest are up a little bit,
services up,
like,
civil,
one of the, oh, civil, you said disturbance.
disturbance, yeah.
Not really. Not really.
Really? Figure maybe that by this time people have been home too long to get it.
No, there's a lot of people going fishing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's no good.
We're having a lot of unregistered, unlicensed vehicle traffic on the
Yeah.
Lake Road. What can we do about those sort of things?
Nothing
Until they what?
until they open up that, DPS down here so they can start going in there and getting the registration.
Well, there is no registration.
He's saying there's no registration.
Unregistered vehicles,
Unregistered.
four-wheelers,
Oh, the other side.
dirt bikes and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's, four-wheelers, they passed that law, ATVs anyway, where they license them, they can be out on the highway,
Okay.
but they still have to come up here and get registered.
Well, if they're unregistered on the county road, are they legal?
No,
We have a lot of that kind of traffic.
that's when you gotta call the sheriff's office and let them know.
We are.
All right,
But we still have a lot of that contract.
Uh-huh.
All hours of the day and night too.
All right, well,
We'll get after
let's
it.
see what we can do for you.
Okay.
Yeah, still.
Yeah, we're having a lot of vandalism on the roads. Why y'all telling them?
That's all right, I mean, hey, we don't know it, we can't do anything about it.
Are they turning donuts at your intersections also?
Yes,
Yeah.
mine do.
Turning intersections in the roadway?
Yeah,
Yeah.
They respect mine, they don't do
yeah.
Yeah.
Must be you doing it. I had theft of road surface material too. Put a rock on the road, they expected it, haul it off.
that. Are you kidding me?
No, oh my gosh. Fill up train truck,
That is bad.
fill up train truck.
Oh, Joe's working hard on civil prospect.
Well, for no more than he has been receiving.
Well, I know, because the courts are,
Right.
right, to shut down, that's why I was saying 60, almost 60 is pretty good.
A little bit more rest this month than we did last month.
Sorry.
More rest this month than
Yeah,
last
it's
month.
been a risk for
Last month, yes, sir.
Okay. Dog's been working too.
A little bit.
Bob Lane's over there.
It's 36 in there today.
Well, place is down.
Not costing much for food, really.
Well, and I think you're possibly gonna see that increase a little bit this coming month, so. Some of these restrictions being lifted.
You know, the MHMR visits, compared to the total population, is actually up.
Yeah.
On the class Cs that the cities are bringing in, are they like warrants, or are they like,
Right now,
PIs.
we just started bringing in, we've added, we're just now bringing back Class C, so
I don't know,
anything that normally that comes in for Class Cs are gonna be warrants, whether it's a
I
county,
didn't know if they were PIs or what.
and a lot of them are PIs, a lot of them paraphernalia.
Could they just write them a ticket for her, and they let them scoot on down the road?
They could, but I don't know, probably.
We actually transported forward to the MHMR evaluation
Yes, sir.
in Wichita Falls. Wichita Falls.
No, they're gonna be for trans to MHMR. Yes, yes, sir, on that top one. Because there's 9 that we sent, that we took to MHMR here for appointments.
They're all the miles for, got us up going back and forth.
Yes.
So is TDC taking them right now?
No.
I didn't think so.
We still, I believe, have 3 or 4 that are ready, back ready.
Is it over 45 days? Is it ready?
Well, see, and that's another thing too, I know where you're going, but there's some of these that are on,
Next one?
parole warrants, paroles, so we don't get any reimbursement for that.
There's all kind of info.
Or any of these four, admitted to their facility,
The ones that were transported, yes, sir.
of the four,
Yes, sir.
so all four of them stayed.
From what I remember, all 4 were left there, we didn't bring anybody back. But they are, as far as whenever they evaluate someone, they'll call on the phone and talk to them on the phone. Some of their restrictions, I guess.
We haven't had any cases out there, have we?
In that jail? No.
Thank God. And I'll be with you on that one.
Were those four in custody, or were they, in jail custody, or were they transported by,
Best I remember, they were not in custody.
they were just evaluated there.
They were evaluated and sent to the facility. Any other questions?
Good.
I'll see if I can get somebody to check on the ATVs.
And, it kind of, especially on my road particularly, because I'm there to see it, I'm getting complaints elsewhere too. People are home, the kids are home.
I was driving around there the other day and I didn't see anything. That was that one day that I was over there.
You know, that one pulled up in my driveway on a dirt bike, threatened to kill my dog.
Yeah, I remember that.
He's still there doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, there's a juvenile that gets on it too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Well, did you mention this, transportation reimbursement? I didn't catch that. So did you-
We did have some, we still have some coming that we have out. But we did get a little bit, which is good.
750,
Sir?
250.
Yes, sir. If everything shut down, I was really surprised we received that.
Item number 10 is discuss and consider Young County Child Welfare Board recommended appointee Teresa Kilpatrick. We've had a couple of resignations on that board, and I think there's a couple of openings or more, than maybe 3. So, President Walker has sent a letter to me, it's in your packet, recommending Teresa Kilpatrick. I think all of you know who that is, so.
So moved.
Second then.
We have a motion from Commissioner Pruitt, and a second from Commissioner Sipes to formally appoint Teresa Kilpatrick to the Young County Child Welfare Board. All in favor? 5-0. We'll make that after one of those later positions. Okay. Item number 10. Discuss, consider interlocal agreement between Young County and City of Brandon for fire protection express services. This is an item that came up at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago. I requested a little delay on that to this meeting so we could review some things in there, especially so I could, and I did. And I have also some recommended changes. The original agreement was in 2011. There was some pretty good changes in there. There weren't material, there wasn't anything on the consideration side of it. It was the same. Most all of it was the same. There was some language changes and some revisions and deletions in some places. So I don't know if you all had an opportunity to review the further suggested changes there. Did they come out and read on our documents?
I don't think they did, even though they were standing like that. But they are still out to the side.
Brandon Anderson. Brandon, would you like to make any comments there?
Well, just a little history on it. Commissioner Wiley asked if we had a current fire contract, and we do. We do have one from 2011, so he asked if we'd be interested in refreshing it. It was actually refreshed by our city attorney. I will tell you, the one we took forward to the city council is a little bit different than what you have. And I've got a copy of what our city council was actually agreed on. Just for y'all, the biggest difference is on page 2, under definition of fire services. This was a recommendation from our fire chief, assistant fire chief. And it's basically language consistent with what we do now with our current fire contract. Which my understanding is now our current fire contract, basically we cover structure fires in the county if we can get there in time. And then also basically accidents that happen outside of the city limits.
Well, I think I also cover like, if a structure is threatened, they do come out.
Right, we'll protect structures, structures that are on fire, we're agreed to, but as far as going and fighting brush fires, and we don't have the capacity, because basically if my unit leaves the city limits, I have to bring someone into the fire hall to cover, the rest of the town. So, that's all that's been changed, and basically what's been changed in that language is taken out, I don't have the old agreement in front of me, but, basically, the fire protection portion and then investigation of fires was in there too, and that's not, if we get a fire that needs to be investigated, we're gonna go to state fire marshals most of the time anyway, so, that's what I assume. If there's something that the sheriff or somebody wants to investigate, you bring an independent source in, that's what we do, so. That's the only changes, and like I said, this one was presented to the city council, last council meeting, and approved. I don't know if you know, we obviously have one in place. It's kind of similar to the agreement that we brought forward for the inmate work crew, that one time we brought forward, and we were looking at considering substantial changes to it, so we just reverted back to the old one. But this is pretty consistent with what we've been doing. You know, and I don't see, you know, the city council, I don't think would see any reason to make substantial changes to the document that you've got, but.
And they got this last yesterday on a fire out.
Certainly if there's minor changes, clerical errors, anything like that, I don't mind. I mean, I think that's an easy update.
The only thing we did add to the change on it was the fact that it has a renewal, automatic renewal on it.
The one now
The one
does
that
evergreen.
Yes, it has an automatic renewal on it.
And that's pretty consistent
Yes.
with contracts, municipal contracts.
Well, these additional changes that I've submitted to the court today, do you have a copy of those?
I do not.
I'm sure I asked you to took one of those copies and consider that, and have the council consider that they're not material changes, but there are some language changes in there that I think are important and make things a little bit clearer in the application considerations. They were saying the basic contract, interlocal agreement itself is substantially the same as it was, but there are language changes that I would request it would be clear.
Would you mind going over those changes you're talking about there?
Excuse me?
Would you mind delineating, going over those changes you're talking about?
Okay, and section 1,
Were these changes done outside council or is this your change?
these are in addition to what was presented.
Yeah, but is this recommendation from outside council or your recommendation?
That's just my recommendations.
Are we looking at the last 4 pages of this document that I got? The one with the edited comments on the right, is that right?
Yeah, I think so, Brandon.
I've got it.
There's not any changes at all on page 1. Page 2, section definitions, fire services. This says, fire service will be defined as the use of all available personnel and or equipment for suppression of fire. In this first contract, it removed, prevention of fire, investigation or fire, or of fire, or rescue operations, and I asked to remove that little comment and put back into it, the suppression of fire or the prevention of fire.
Well, you want to remove the rescue operation?
No, it does include that. It includes,
And that's where we changed our,
We'll change
is
everything.
suppression of fire or rescue operation.
Yes. Or structure fire. Yeah. they put
it's all
structure fire.
regarding structure. It's all regarding structure. Page one wasn't changed at all in it. I just requested to add basically protection from fire, or then rescue operations added into it. Item number B, service area. For the purposes of this agreement, fire service area will be in general terms of the southeastern one half of Young County, excluding the described area. It says any area the city of Graham owns. Suggest that instead of that language that we use the corporate limit of the city or any other location that would ordinarily be a city responsibility. C, fire call answer. So fire call shall be answered after a call is initiated to the city by county dispatch services through the Young County Sheriff's Department and City Department. Equipment or personnel leave the incorporated boundaries of the city of Graham and perform fire suppression or protection of a structure located in the area. Now, up in A, it was suggested and moved that all the terminology was removed except fire suppression in that. And I wanted to add back in A, protection from fire. So that would be protecting the structure from catching on fire, or suppressing a structure that was on fire.
Well, if you put it in the general fire services, prevention of fire, it's hard for my fire department to be out preventing fires of any kind, but it addresses it specifically under C, where it says that basically it would be perform fire suppression or protection on a structure located in the service area. So to me, I prefer the way that we have it in A, where it says
One of
suppression.
those didn't have that in there, Brandon, and the other one does. A didn't have that in there, your protection, but C does have it in your protection, so. It's included in both of them in this one. Item D, motor vehicle accidents. It says motor vehicle accidents which require the assistance of fire rescue services as requested by the dispatching agency. I took the dispatching agency out of there and added Young County 911 dispatch services.
I don't have any problem with the county 911 dispatch services. In all those three areas. What about TH7? What does that mean?
Excuse me.
I'm looking at the item, it says TH7, remove from section 2.
As the city will provide fire services to the service area defined herein on request made by Young County Dispatch Services of the Young County Sheriff's Department. I eliminated the county dispatch and Young County Sheriff's Department and added back in their county 911 dispatch services.
Which is the same.
The same thing.
Just
The
a
same
redefinition.
thing. Just redefinition.
The language is a little bit changed. I like the language to be a little more consistent through there. Section number 3, payments. county designated agent agrees to pay, city an annual rate of $24,000 for fire services provided in accordance with section 2 stated above. I took out county designated agent and added Young County agrees to pay city an annual fee of $24,000 for the services provided in accordance with section 2 stated above. I took out county's designated agent and put Young County as the payee. It's basically the Commissioner's Court, said the Commissioner's Court would pay.
Really, it's gonna be, the auditor's gonna do the paying, he's a designated agent.
County's designated agent is a little bit, we don't know who designated agent is necessarily, but Young County is, Young County, the governing body of Young County, who made the contract. Item number 5, eliminations. Says dispatch calls for services not defined herein should be paid by the county on actual cost basis as evidenced by invoice. Ended there, and I removed dispatch calls and reworded that to calls dispatched by Young County 911 dispatch service, dispatch and serviced. And then we removed cost basis as evidenced by invoice. I added that back in there, calculated as an average run cost for all runs of Graham Fire Department during the previous operating year, invoiced to Young County Auditor and subject to approval of the Commissioner's Court.
So I'm thinking that item A covers any incidentals. I mean, if we were to have damage to a fire truck or something else happen on that event.
Young County Dispatch called for assistance for Graham to respond to something that's not defined in this contract, that we would pay as a cost per run basis that you've identified in the previous year, what your average run cost was. In other words, I think you probably know what your average run cost is especially on a year-end basis on that previous year, and that's what we would be due to pay for a call that's not necessarily defined here.
But I mean, if it's not defined here, why would we do it?
Yeah, why would they go?
So, yeah, you know, I don't wanna get it, if we're gonna put that language in there and with every time, you know, number one, I don't know that we'd be willing to respond every time they call, just because we need an agreement to do this. At the end of the day, if we didn't have this agreement in place, we're not required to do anything outside the city limits. But I hope for the safety of our county that we can keep, you know, especially with the response vehicle that we've got for wrecks. I mean, you know, for you guys to staff that and put that in yourself, that's a pretty substantial cost.
Well, I think an accident is a defined.
Exactly, but I'm curious what attack we're taking with that language though, because if it's not to go protect a structure or for an accident, we're not going.
Might as well take that whole thing out again.
Well, again, I think the intent is for anything that happens to,
What good is that? Is that statement? What good is that?
I think again, it's put in there for something that damage happened to a piece of equipment or something that was, I think it's in there kind of an incidental,
Incidentally,
common language but but I just get concerned about, and I mean, might be easier to do away with this agreement and just charge on run calls. I mean, if we're gonna, I don't really wanna have to get there, I don't want our community safety to be kind of dictated on whether or not it was, documented correctly or billed correctly, or for $24,000 a year protecting citizens of Young County in auto vehicle accidents and just, protecting structures on the fringe of our community, I think that's pretty cheap.
Okay, if you did respond to a call that was outside of your service area, would you just say, no, I'm not going?
I really don't know why the county would want to put the city in that spot. If we're willing to do it, 9 times out of 10 we've gone, let's say 99.9 times out of 10, 100 we've gone.
we're not trying to make something more difficult than what we're doing. Huh?
Well, some of it need to be clarified, didn't you? And you didn't take this up with anybody, but you and Brandon.
Do what?
You didn't take this up with anybody, but you and Brandon, or not.
No, that's not true, Don. How many times have we talked about this in court, that we need to do something with this?
Okay, we're talking about it.
Okay? But this ain't a time to do fishing contest.
No, it is, doesn't it?
No, it ain't. This bill right here, what you're saying we did in 2011 does not worth anything? But we all agreed to it in 2011.
Jimmy, I think some of it needs to be clarified better than it is in that, and
That's your personal opinion.
it is, and that's what we're talking about. I guess that's the other one, your personal opinion.
No, sir, it's not my personal opinion.
Whose opinion was it?
What we
It's
did
collaboration,
was, just,
I mean, what used to work was money, but I don't think anybody gave you authority to negotiate a contract.
I'm not,
we're not.
and I didn't take that as authority, I took that as a citizen and a commissioner asking for a public document that if anybody in this community asked me, I had to provide. Then the comment was made, do we mind refreshing it? Yes, we refreshed it. Where you guys are heading this conversation has zero to do with me. And I'm gonna step out because this is what I've struggled with since I've been here. If we wanna address issues, if we have concerns, we need to communicate, we need the ability to communicate better, and we should be communicating better. I get frustrated because we don't have a good working relationship with the city, with the county. But I don't know what more we could do. But this conversation, I mean, I've got the agreement the city council presented, I brought it to you today with the change in the language from there. Past that, I guess at this point, I just tell you, there it is, if you'd like to approve it, I've got the original for signatures, but if not, I think we'll just rely back on that 2011 agreement.
This is agreed.
I don't mind making some minor clerical errors, but I think we're flipping points.
But if this is agreed upon, it needs to start January 1, is there anything else?
That's what it is in this agreement.
And if we want to put Young County 911 in there, that's fine.
No, you don't, look, it's defined as what it is.
Well, Young County's gonna dispatch them anyway.
I mean, this is between Young County and.
I mean, who else could it be? And it's like Brandon just said, we're just looking at.
Just like we feel January 1's acceptable for y'all, it's kind of mid-year for us, but I mean, it's fine.
We knew October, for fiscal year, that's y'all too.
That January 1 date is the suggested rate because that's the way
Hell, we
the
do that.
time, the way 2011 was intended to be. Be that.
2011, that's the way it was done.
It may be best on fiscal year.
I'm good with either one, it's blank on the one we're ready to fill it in, so.
The budget's very out. I don't have a problem with it. I think it sounds good. good.
I'll make a motion to go with what the city is.
I'll second that.
And you did, Mr. Anderson did say one thing that was fine if we changed it. What was that? It was on,
Change it to 911.
well, I think he said
I don't
something.
think there is any change.
There's no reason to make any changes.
No, but he said something else sounded better.
Well, what he put in there, is he put suppression of fire and structure fires or rescue operations.
Mhm.
And A, section 1, item A. And that's in the current one, so it's what it's saying. The one that's got changes in it don't have changes in it.
The one that I presented to you is consistent with the original that was sent over y'all, that except for that one, under definition, section 1A, fire services.
Yes.
And prevention of fire, investigation, and or is wrong, it should be prevention of fire, investigation of fire has been removed.
And then the structure fires and plus.
And I agree, it's our responsibility,
It is.
along with, I mean, it's all of our, we want to protect our citizens. I don't care if they live in Graham, Young County, or where.
That's right.
And we gotta do what we gotta do.
And the one that I'll leave here, depending on what happens, has the dates to be filled out, when it was done, when it was signed. Arian has already signed it, and then the only other thing to add would be term, and we're agreeable to whatever is decided to put in there.
I think we should go from October, October. That's our fiscal year, that's their fiscal year.
October 1 to September 30.
Be fine with me.
Is that part of your motion to amend it to October?
It's amended to October, that way it's their fiscal year.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Are you amending your motion?
I'm in the motion on the date of the time that it ends, the time it begins.
And what part of it? Just the date?
Just the date.
So,
Section
are you doing anything, definition? Section A?
That section A has already been, their deal has already been changed. What it is, the same one we handed out, I handed out to y'all the other day, got the same revision.
We're gonna leave out fire protection.
We're leaving out prevention of fire and investigation of fire. And we're putting in there, it's gonna be saying, for equipment for the suppression of fire or the structure fires.
I think what he's asking, are you not gonna add the protection from fire as suggested?
No, it's in C, it covers that right there also.
I mean, if they're out there protecting the
That's
structure.
what they're doing.
They're
It's,
protecting.
it's in the deal.
That's the original call and everything get called on.
That's
They come
right,
out,
to protect.
it's to help protect the structures.
Like when they came to my house. That fire out.
Yeah.
They came out there protecting my structure.
So to have it in section A would be redundant from what is in section C.
Exactly.
They're not gonna let nothing happen. That's a good fire
That's
department.
right.
So no, it does not.
It's further defined in the
It's just further defined and said,
And I appreciate your fire department, Brandon. I really do. A lot.
So the motion is to accept the city's form with a change in the effective date to October 1st.
yes.
So that motion, won't break that to prove it, or
No,
So
so
it's
Jimmy,
me and
I seconded it, so.
Well, I didn't make it, I was just saying do October to September 30th.
He suggested the change, Jimmy made a motion.
So that's motion by Wiley, and second by Sykes.
Yes, sir.
Revisions in contract as offered
City Attorney.
by the city of Graham.
Yes, sir.
With effective date, October 1.
October 1.
October 1 through September 30. All in favor? Very good. 5-0.
If I've got the floor for just a moment, I apologize for my frankness just a few moments ago, but I'd also like to tell you guys that City Hall has moved from our old existing building to our new building, which, Dorman says we can't call the City Hall a new building because the city's never moved into a new building. This one's actually a year older than, or I don't know, he was telling me the history, basically. We move into 40-year-old buildings is what it sounds like.
Location.
That being said, the city has had some discussions and would be interested in opening conversations with the county if that could help facilitate the county in any way. If that building is anything y'all would like to take a look at for a county annex or anything like that, this proximity to the square. I do have it on the agenda this Thursday to discuss with the city council on what they'd like to do. I think we'll probably put it out for an extended time for bid. And obviously the city has the right to consider and accept or reject any and all qualified bids, but at the same time, if it is for a county city interlocal agreement of some kind or some relationship that we could work out, obviously I think, the city would be very interested in the open area that we've got on the south side of the square. Not sure what the county wants to do with the valuable asset crisis building that you got. We might be willing to take that headache off your
Is there some
hands.
sarcasm there?
Some, and glad to see the crisis center transitioning to a new facility. Eventually, I hope that happens very well for them. But don't know why. I know y'all spent some money on that roof, but you're kind of like us. You had to put a whole lot of investment in old building. But that's on the floor. Take it however you want and discuss it however you want. If you want to come back to the table with anybody from the city, we'd be happy to have that conversation. But I am going to ask them to go ahead and put it out for bid as well. And we'll kind of entertain offers if there's something out there, but then also look at who wants to buy it too. So
Wouldn't we have the same problems you were having at that building?
depending on what offices you put in there, but yes, it is out of date. Similar to a lot of other 100-year-old buildings around the square. For what I don't know what the discussions have been in terms of the needs for the county, but I think you could get in there and retrofit that one pretty cheap and have a pretty good amount of office space.
No, it's not the city judges and all that's still over there, right?
The judge and
That's not
fiscal
part of
court will
it.
stay there.
Okay.
Actually, the public works office, if you're familiar with it, that was on the back side will be cut out, and we're gonna eventually expand that municipal court to have a courtroom instead of a court.
So how many square feet is down there, you know?
Roughly, I'm gonna guess top and bottom 20,000. We just put we essentially did the roof on it, what y'all did over here across the center.
So the top of it almost be irrelevant because of what you ran into, the problems you ran into.
But on the top's not having.
No elevator and stuff like that.
If you were to put like a utility elevator up there and just get it, and clean it out. Be a good storage area or, something. So, but you could put a lift on the outside for carrying, a little more inexpensive than an elevator.
So we can look at it, it's holler at you.
Holler at me, or, yeah, we've got a key, or I can get you a key to leave with you. And you guys can go do it at your own. Okay? All right,
That building, Brandon,
sir?
how old is that building?
1904 version, I believe.
I think I'm 40. So it's substantially older than the courthouse, which is nearly 90 years old.
Yeah. It's a solid building, it just needs a little update, so, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay. Why would we rent that building if they wasn't good for them? Why would they?
Well, we want the old rent, so, they were, free deal.
They wouldn't want the newspaper then. Why wouldn't they let the newspaper? Because it's a freestanding infrastructure that we traditionally use. And drive through them. If we change something today, we would get it free.
I mean, we just have to look at it.
Item number 12, discuss city burn restriction. I think that, well, we don't have anything to do with Memorial Day. I think this is the last day to act on that. But we don't sell any fireworks here on Memorial Day anyway, they haven't never looked at it.
What you love? That warehouse is gonna be selling all year round, isn't it?
But you can't shoot them all year round, right?
No, you can't.
Any discussion on burn restriction?
Has any of the fires we had this last week, would they have been stopped in any way by a burn restriction?
The one
So
yesterday,
maybe,
Which one?
one on Bunker Road,
What happened?
Control
they
the
had a
road.
control burn, got out of control.
Well, can't you have a control burn during a burn ban with the proper folks in place?
If you have a product.
Yeah,
and it burns.
regular.
well, it's my thing. It's not guaranteed. I mean, it was a little bit windy. We had a couple of hours there late in the afternoon. I don't
You don't want to include,
Any reason
My
to
thing.
change it?
bring it down in the morning.
Okay.
So it's a good chance on.
No action.
Bigger chance on the weekend.
Yep,
You need on your roads?
Always needed on my road.
You get cracked.
I don't need more hail.
Don't need more hail?
No more hail.
That is rather large in your end of the county.
I had grass this tall in the pasture.
Beat down to nothing.
Now I got grass this tall.
That's a lot of economic loss right there.
They come in this way for a while, and they came in this way for a while.
Oh, yeah, I can sit there in my house and see that cloud. up
Yeah,
there.
me too.
We had a couple vehicles beat up.
A lot of damage to a lot of houses, and farmers.
No action on burn ban.
Market.
I'm ready for some rain, man. I got cracks in my roads and stuff like that. It's huge.
That leaves a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Jimmy. Good on it.
All in favor?
Little beer.
5-0.
We get something that'll drive through payment.
Did you need anything from me?
Stuff in and out.
I don't think you need it in front of you. Might take a picture of it, put it on the front page. Here, let me stand it.
Auditor and tax sheriff.
Sheriff gets hit by auditor.
By little old weakling.
Right?
guy, beating his wife up out there screaming and yelling, running up down the road and that thing. You know, the other neighbor's dog the other day was doing. Biggest dog that
Oh, where?
George Birdwell Winter. The lady that's got one arm and no leg. Sitting there on that corner.